All right, so you survived to the spring 2021 semester. Guess I should actually talk about things for both people who have had me and the people who haven't had me. So if you have any questions, type them in the chat. Keep in mind that this chat is saved in this live stream, so it'll be available for other people to watch. Just to eliminate any confusion off the bat, these are not lectures I'm giving during the live streams. These are office hours. Two reasons I don't do lectures, and you're not going to see lectures in this online course. One, and most importantly, it is not the least bit useful to you as a student. It is incredibly boring to sit and watch somebody talk to a camera for an hour. I have plenty of videos on my channel that are actually linked to in the course website for specific areas. They're between 3 and 8 minutes long. The 8 minutes tend to be for the more complicated ideas, but typically topical 3 to 5 minute videos, so you can learn the topics that way. They're grouped by playlist. You'll see them on the course website. So there are no lectures. The second is that it's not really fair to have a lecture. This is not truly a CDIC course. So for me to have a time where everyone can meet, probably not going to happen. So how do these live streams work? Well, basically, if you can make it to the live stream, you're free to put your question into the chat and I will answer. This is just kind of here to give you an opportunity to ask questions. If you can't make the live stream but you have a question, just email me the question in advance and I answer the email questions at the start of the video. So you don't have to sit here and wait for the whole video. Off the bat, I'll answer the question and then move to the questions I'm getting in the chat bar. If I don't get any chats, you can see my previous live stream. Usually what I'll do is I'll mess around with a banjo or guitar just to kind of kill the time. But again, these are not meant to be lectures. They're not here for you to like come and get a lecture. It's more that if you have a question or you need something explained, that's what I'm here to do. Most of the traditional lecturing you would think of in terms of a traditional college course, that's going to be on the YouTube videos that are posted to the playlist on the course website. So how about the course itself? Big thing you need to be doing each week, because we have made changes now between the fall and the spring, because finally Wake Tech has come up with a cohesive plan. Discussion boards are every week, so every Friday, except when there's a holiday, you have a discussion board due. This counts towards your attendance. Now, last semester there was a lot of confusion, so we were kind of light and loose with that. How we enforced it this semester is a bit different. If you miss 3 consecutive discussion boards, you'll be withdrawn from the course from not attending the course. I will try to get an email out to you, but this is kind of your responsibility. Now, if you go, well, I don't know how to answer the discussion board question, that's fine. Put something in. My policy is and will always be with the discussion board. These are meant to help you. They count for 0.5% of the grade in the course. They're considered 1/5 of a homework. The whole reason these discussion boards are there to help you study. If you don't know the answer, just put in a post saying, I don't know, I'm going to work it out later. I'm putting in a post for attendance. Practically, I don't grade them until the following Monday, so you have the whole weekend to submit some type of answer to count for attendance. So the attendance I can't retroactively do. So if Monday enter attendance and you haven't posted anything, you're considered absent for that week, and if you knock up enough absences, I have to withdraw you from the course. That said, there is no late penalty for discussion boards, and you can change your answer if you want to. In fact, several of the discussion boards offer you that opportunity. Put down an answer. That makes it so you can see the other answers people have put down, and you can change your answers. There is no late penalty. You can submit them up until the day exams start. And the reason I put that cutoff for the day exam starts, when we get to the exam period, during that week, the only grade you're going to have outstanding is your final exam. So I kind of have to cut the discussion boards off so I can go ahead and put those grades in. In terms of homeworks, I do not make a homework due every week. I realize you have lives outside of my course. It is due the Friday before an exam is due. We have 4 exams, 1 final. The exams you have a full week to take. They open on Monday at 12:01 in the morning and they go through until that following Sunday at 11:59 p.m. That Friday, so the exam starts on a Monday, that Friday is when the homework is due. There's roughly 60 to 90 questions on the homework. The only exception here is the final exam set. That's typically shorter, 40 to 50 questions. The homework is kind of arranged in chronological order. You'll see announcements every week through the course website telling you what topics you need to cover. That said, the email doesn't go out. You're still responsible for going to the course website and checking that yourself. But it'll give you an idea of what topics you need to be an expert in, and the discussion board will kind of help you with that as well to give you a feel for what you need to know by the end of the week. But the entire homework is open up until the exam. The reason for this is that you can self-pace. You can get ahead in the homework, you can get behind the homework. It's all up to you in terms of how you want to study. You have to buy an ebook subscription to get access to the homework as well as the exams. Now, the exams. We've changed the policy now because now we actually have a standard policy. Traditionally, Wake Tech, when you took an online course, you went to the e-learning testing center, or the ELTC. That's where you took your exams. Last semester, we didn't have the ELTC because we couldn't do in-person exams. So we were kind of debating what to do for the exams. The solution to that was not to have them proctored until we figured out what would work best. Now we know what works best. So these exams this semester are proctored. You have to have a webcam, which is a requirement for taking this course. It's going to record you taking the exam. It's going to lock down your browser so you can only have one tab open. And it's going to require that you have things visible. And you're going to see this in the syllabus as well. If it's just a tight up of your face, I can throw out your exam because I can't see if you're cheating or not. These are meant to be to discourage cheating. That's it. Don't freak out. These are not draconian measures. It's mostly if there's any irregularities with your exams. That's the bigger thing it's there to take care of. But these are proctored exams. They were not proctored before, but you have the full week to take them. You have an hour and 15 minutes to take the exam once you open it up. Now, the reason why I give you this week window, if you miss an exam in the syllabus, there is a list of explain. My plan was to take it this weekend, but I've got something coming up. This is what's coming up. I'm more inclined to give you access. The big thing is that in fairness to other students, when you take your exam and you submit it, it will give you a grade, but it won't tell you what you missed. That becomes available Monday morning. So Monday morning after the exam is due, you can see what you missed. You can see what the correct answers are, and this is a way for you to study for the final exam. Once that becomes available Monday, there's no integrity left with the test. You could easily just talk to someone else and figure out what was on the exam, figure out what the right answers probably are, and do that. So if you tell me a couple days after the exam, ooh, I missed it, can I get an extension? The answer is going to be no, unless you can really demonstrate you were hospitalized for that entire week and were unable to reach out. Other things in the course. Big thing this week, take your course entry quiz. Course entry quiz counts as entry into the course. If you have not taken it, I think by Thursday of next week, you are automatically withdrawn from the course. So go ahead and knock it out. If you haven't taken it, you probably noticed there's not a lot of stuff on the course website. That's because it locks you out to a lot of resources until you take that course entry quiz. Now, there was also a big fat email that went out, should have gone out. Under the announcements page, it gives you information on the book. The modeling kit is going to be the one I really advocate for you here. We are still going with this archaic modeling kit. We have not been able to get some faculty behind switching what the kit is, but that's going to change next semester. But for now, we have an archaic modeling kit. I do not like it. It is an awful modeling kit. It is nearly impossible to work with. There is a $20 option on Amazon, which you will find a link to in the course announcement. That is a much better modeling kit. It is actually, do you even have it over here? It is much more akin to the one that I use. It's a lot more flexible and it's a lot easier to work with, especially for the Orgo 1 material. So you do need a modeling kit. This cannot be emphasized enough, and hopefully I'll have some Orgo 2 students chime in every now and then to remind you of that. Modeling kit helps so much because of how much of this is 3D and spatial reasoning, and even a lot of this I can't see, and I've been doing this for years. That's about the only real resource you have to purchase other than the online kit. You have the option of buying the book if you want, but the ebooks is part of your online subscription to McGraw-Hill. There are also other free organic chemistry textbooks that are a part of that link as well. Now, for the lab, Wake Tech is not going to do in-person labs until February 19th. That's not going to affect most of you. Next week, we weren't even planning having you physically come in for lab. We were going to tell you anyway, don't show up. The big reason is we need to do the safety talk first. We'll talk about this more in the individual lab sessions. You will not have a lab partner. 8 students, 8 lab benches. You all wear masks, you all wear goggles. You'll have access to gloves, mostly that's for the chemicals. And we'll talk more about the safety in person, but we want to make sure that you've done the safety talk before you show up to lab rather than afterwards. Now, I have one section that technically meets this Friday. You've already got an announcement about that. We are going to technically have a meeting this Friday at 8 a.m. That said, there's nothing planned. You can stop in and leave as quickly as you want. Next week is really where we're going to start with the labs in terms of review materials, going through policies, and what it's going to take to be successful in the course. Other things about this course. I'm trying to think. Labs 25%, the 4 exams are 48%, the final exams 22%, homework's 2.5%, quizzes are 2.5%, but your quiz is pretty much going to be that course entry quiz, so that's a free 2.5 points. There are some details that show up towards the end of the semester. Um, in terms of the course itself, I'm coordinate with two other instructors, Professor Sacco and Professor Pieris, on North Campus. This is going to be taught differently than how it's taught at UNC and State. So I just got to ask, are we not meeting in lab until February 19th? That is correct. The big concern here is the post-Christmas COVID spike. That said, we were never even planning on that anyway as organic instructors. The whole plan next week was just to do a virtual meeting via Teams, and you're going to get an email announcement you're going to get an email link to that Teams meeting after they get done with this live stream. So yeah, Wake Tech is not going in person until February 19th for the hybrids. They have assured us that we're not going online. So it's not like they're going to keep pushing this date back and back. They may push it back one more week, but you are definitely having in-person labs this semester. All right, so course itself, what I was trying to get at. There are two fundamental ways that you can teach organic chemistry. There are three concepts that have to be taught in organic chemistry: naming, reactions, and characterization. So those are kind of like the big three. There's other little details, but those are the big three. In terms of how we approach it, State UNC kind of take the Francis Carey approach where they teach three in parallel. There is something to be advocated for that, being that it contextualizes the information. So if you're learning about alkanes, that is a functional class of molecules. So you would learn how to name them, you would learn how they react, and you would learn how to characterize those. The downside to this is that you're having to do parallel learning. So there's three topics that have to be mastered, which require mastery in order to understand how they interplay. The other option is that I can teach you the three concepts on their own. And that's how we've decided to approach this course. Now, the downside with this is context. You're going to learn, for Orgo 1, you're going to learn how to do drawing and characterization before you ever learn what an alkane is or how it reacts. The downside to that is that you don't really understand the context of things like with the drawing. Oh no, we're online through February 19th. So the question is not even online. We're meeting online next week. We're just not physically meeting for the labs. We have an agreement with NC State, UNC, all UNC school system that if you take a hybrid course, you have to maintain so many physical hours of contact with the instructor. So we have a little bit of wiggle room on that number, but we have to do an in-person lab. Now, unlike the UNC school system, if we miss something, we have to make it up. So we can't cancel labs. If we cancel a lab, we have to give you a 2-hour and 50-minute assignment to make up that missed time. So next week, we're going to have a virtual meeting through MS Teams. But we're still having lab, we're just not doing it in person. But there's definitely lab next week. We're going to talk about safety, we're talking about course expectations, and for the Orgo 2 students, if you want to, we can do some optional review. And you'll get an announcement about this next week, just to remind you. But yeah, we got the announcement 2 days ago saying that we're not open until February 19th. All right, so back to what I was saying. We teach, for Orgo 1, we teach the three concepts so that your first three exams are the absolute hardest, so the first being the hardest of the hard. If you can get through the first three exams in Orgo 1, you're going to do just fine in the course. They actually get easier, and I see test scores go up. Big thing is laying that foundation. If you have a good foundation on characterization and drawing, naming is easy. If you have a good foundation on naming with alkanes, anything above alkanes is actually pretty easy. The hardest part about alkanes is figuring out who the number one carbon is. When we start tacking on things like ketones, aldehydes, alcohols, high priority functional groups, those set the first carbon. But if you can name some like horrible alkane, naming an alcohol is super trivial. Then when we get to reactions with alcohols and alkyl halides, the challenge with that is keeping track of stereochemistry, like how certain things react. But by test 4, naming, characterization, and reactions end up being kind of just building on themselves. So we lay the foundations early, and for Orgo 2, this is kind of the same story. We start with the hardest one, which is aromaticity and polyenes, polyalkenes. They're the hardest ones to do because you're using a theory that isn't complete, and it shows up when you try to analyze the molecules, like there's little things that don't quite make sense about the theory. But if you can get through the first 2 units, you're pretty well set for Orgo 2. Test 4 is just basically test 3 with additional stuff on it. And then your final exam, particularly stuff with like the biochemistry, that's just memorization. So kind of take that to heart. The goal of this course is to kind of hit you hard early, but it's not unnecessarily hard. Like, I don't take that NC State mentality of let's be hard for the sake of being hard. It's hard because you're laying a foundation and making sure you have a good foundation. If you have that foundation, the rest of organic gets easier. If you have a good foundation in organic 1, Orgo 2 should be the easier of the 2 courses to take, not the harder. But that's the big thing about organic. Yeah, make sure you got a modeling kit, especially if you're in Orgo 1. Make sure you have that modeling kit. You're not going to really need it until we get to test 2, but it's good to go ahead and get it out and get used to working with it. And you're going to see me pull it out. It's buried somewhere on my workbench over here. But I do actually have an organic kit I'll take out and work with on the videos too. So any other questions out there? Now, these videos are going to get posted to, all the live streams get posted to a YouTube playlist that's available on the course website. So yeah, if you ever want to go back and look at the live stream, it's there for you. Nice thing about the banjo and the guitar, if you see me up playing with it, probably means I'm not saying anything important. I try to put it down when I'm actually answering questions. How many hours a week does it take to be successful in the course? It depends on your mentality. I would definitely go with the rule that the number of hours the course is multiply that by 3, and that's probably how many hours you should be spending on homework and studying outside the course. So for this course, I'd say roughly 9 hours a week is probably reasonable. I say it's going to also kind of depend on your disposition. People who are very good at spatial reasoning find organic chemistry very easy. That said, because of these 3 aspects of organic chemistry, some people cling to more aspects of it than others. I love the characterization. I did the characterization a lot when I was in grad school, so I find that material fascinating and I really love it. But I'm not so huge on the naming. I mean, I think it's interesting. You can see the German roots in it, but some people love the naming. They think it's really easy and straightforward to do. So I would say you're roughly averaging about 9 hours a week is probably reasonable. If you are struggling with the course, this is part of your tuition dollars, is the Individualized Learning Center, the ILC. They are an excellent resource to go to. They provide free tutoring. You just have to sign up for a tutoring hour, and they'll work with you. They have access to my resources, so they can definitely help you with it. Yes, and the discussion board. Now, your entry quiz and the discussion board, they're both going to count towards the attendance. So if you do one, you're going to be counting attendance this week. But yeah, the only thing that you really absolutely need to do this week is that course entry quiz. Because you do need to enter the course. And to our credit, so in terms of like the book, it's actually a good book. Francis and Carey is the golden standard. It kind of falls apart for Organic 2, but for Organic 1, it's a very good book. Yes, so there's a discussion board due this week for Organic 1 and Organic 2. So I'm just going to bring this up on my end. The fun part of the semester where I still have to set up so you come in through the course entry quiz. So for organic 1, the discussion board, you're given a molecule, you're just asked to name the different functional groups. And then for organic 2, your discussion board this week, it's a review on reactions of alkenes and allylic hydrogens. So if you're given chlorine gas and you hit it with light, where do you expect the chlorine to substitute on the given molecule? And it also reviews the naming of alkenes and dienes. So it's more kind of meant to be more of a review session. Access code for the homework. I think if you just go to the course website and click on the link for homework 1, so under quizzes and assignments, you're going to find the homework. If you click on that, it'll take you right to McGraw-Hill, and from McGraw-Hill, you can buy the homework code directly. I think you can buy it from the bookstore too, but honestly, I think they mark it up. So just go through the course website, and it should get you there. Yeah, you're welcome, Elijah. So homeworks are accessed on the course website on quizzes and assignments. There's one that's homework, there's one that says exams, and there's one that says labs. We'll talk more about labs, but you're just going to submit a worksheet for the lab that's available through the course website for you to download and process. In fact, you can process it while you're in the lab. So in terms of the due date for homework 1, if you go to My Grades, it will actually show you due dates beneath each of the assignments. So the due date for homework 1, and it's going to be labeled material test 1, material test 2, test 3. It's due January 29th. So the end of the month for the homework. You'll also see on there, oh, you're welcome. Yeah, same thing for the exams as well. So it shows you the due dates for the exams. You'll also get in, I try to make sure that it says this in announcements. And again, go to the course website at least once a week. The newest announcement is always at the top for you to see. It'll also try to remind you that, yeah, the homework's due this week or that you have an exam this week as well. And if all else fails, just shoot me an email. Yeah, but yeah, we try to keep this as accessible as possible. And if for whatever reason you're having issues, particularly if you take the exam and it throws you out, shoot me an email. Sooner is better rather than later, saying that it threw you out. Now, I will give you a warning with the with some of the grades on the course website. This is more of a practical issue. So the grades are designed to update in real time. So when your homework 1 is due, it'll download the grade from McGraw-Hill and it'll update your homework grade. But the thing to keep in mind is like right now your homework grades are all discussion boards. So if you do one discussion board but don't do another, that's like 50%. You'll certainly have a 50 on the homework. Give this semester about two tests in before you start really worrying about your grades in the course, because you're going to see a lot of fluctuations, because something like your lab grade, it's got lab worksheets, it's got lab reports in it, it's got a lot of things that go into it. If you have one bad worksheet, it's going to really disproportionately weigh down your lab grade. Let it get about 4 or 5 lab worksheets in before you really start worrying about your lab grade. And even then, your lab reports are 12.5% of the grade. So you're going to see at the beginning of the semester your grade really fluctuates in the class. It takes to about test 2, test 3 before the grades really begin to kind of settle down to what you actually have in the course. And I know that can be frustrating because you want to know what you have in the course, but it's just one of those things. You're not really seeing the full grade in the course right now. That's just a practical nature of it. But yeah, definitely by test 3, you'll have a really good feel for what you have in the course. And it's intentional that I think the test 3 exam falls right before the withdrawal WF date. Oh boy, looks like they forcibly updated parts of my gradebook. I guess I get to go change that after this. We actually got to see these course shells middle of December. So I had this course set up by middle of December, and then they do this weird update to the Blackboard shells like 2 days before classes start. So you have to go back through and make sure they haven't changed anything for you. Do let me know if the course website is giving you issues. And I get why they do this, but it's just really annoying. Other questions? And for the state folks, we do run our courses differently at Wake Tech. We do not actively hit our student population, and we are not out to get you. It's odd, but I do have to tell a lot of state students that. All right, well, here to answer any other questions you might have. So, question got to ask: can I use the iPad? We're not using Respondus. We're using whatever the lockout software is through McGraw Hill. I'm guessing it will let you use it, but I would definitely say play it safe and just use a traditional computer. If you do the iPad and you have issues, particularly if it locked you out in the first few minutes, just shoot me an email. It'll let me know how long you took the exam. And if I see you took the exam for like 3 minutes and it threw you out, that's probably a good sign that it was the software and it wasn't you. It's a little different when someone says, "Oh, I got thrown out," and they're like 2 minutes on each question. But yeah, try it with your iPad. If it doesn't work, shoot me an email saying, "Hey, it threw me out of the software," and I can just reset your submission. So I got a question. Do I prefer in-person office hours or one-on-one Zoom meetings? Just so I can ask you a few questions about the setup. In general, I'm reluctant to meet with students one-on-one. For something like software early semester, I can just let me know what time works best, and we can do it through the MS Teams software. The big reason I'm reluctant to meet with students one-on-one is more that so when you meet me in my office during a normal semester, like there's people around, things can be heard. When it's one-on-one with a student, there's a bit more of a he said, she said, and I don't like putting students in that scenario where it's he said, she said. But this particular question got asked. If you just let me know what time works best for you, we can just set up a Zoom meeting and I can go through the software with you. It's the 5 first minutes. You mind repeating, please? Not sure what I said for the first 5 minutes, to be honest with you, but again, this will be posted after the live stream's done. What did I say for the first 5 minutes of this meeting? Big thing I think I said is that there are no lectures. So these live streams that you see, there will be 4 of them a week. They're not lectures. They're not meant to be lectures. They are more meant to be office hours. So if you have questions, you can show up, or if you're not able to make the live streams, shoot me an email. I answer the email questions first, so that they're in the first few minutes for anyone who watches over them. And traditionally, what will happen, and this gets more and true as the semester goes on. Generally, there's no one here, so I just kind of mess around on a banjo or guitar to pass the time. These live streams are always posted to the course website, so you can access them down the road, see if there were any questions. But don't treat these as lectures. They're not meant to be lectures. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that you can actually go right back to the beginning and see it. But yeah, these live streams aren't lectures. You're not required to show the live streams. If you don't need the live streams, don't use them. It's just a resource for you to use. The big thing that these are used for is that there'll be an odd homework question. Just shoot me an email and I'll answer the question. I really have no qualms working through homework problems. You're going to find I get a bit more reluctant as exams start showing up, just because some people do try to cheat the system and get me to answer exam questions. Email. The first person in lab is going to be, for right now, it's scheduled for January 20th for Orgo 2. Orgo 1, y'all didn't have the 18th anyway. That's a holiday. So for Orgo 1, the first in person is January 25th. Now, there is a lab assignment that we would have done on the week of the 18th, and you'll see this in the Orgo 1 schedule. It's drawing organic structures, teaching you how to do line bond, wedge dash, RS, all that. We'll talk about that next week when we have our meeting for the lab. But for the Orgo one, you do have an assignment you're going to have to do on your own. That said, you got the live stream, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out during the live streams and I can answer the questions. The big thing with that is to get you practicing drawing line bond structures. For Orgo 2, next that week I think is NMR review. And that's always interesting. Let me bring up the syllabus and find out. Follow the book chapters. There's also on the course website. There are YouTube playlists that I walk through and discuss the individual topics as well. So if you learn better by reading, use the book. If you learn better by videos, there's videos on the course website. If you work better by interaction, you've got the live streams. You've also got the ILC. If you have time in the lab, you can also ask me questions in person in the lab. The syllabus will also tell you the order. Now, for Orgo 1, I'll give you fair warning. We're gonna bounce around in the chapters a lot because it is trying to do the parallel structure. It's not until about test due do we really begin to settle in and actually follow the book chapters in order. But definitely for test 1, we're kind of all over the place in the book. Refer to the syllabus. The syllabus will actually tell you what chapters in the book to utilize. Yes, so for Orgo 2, next week is just safety. And then we're going to do a review of NMR, IR, and the lab techniques just to kind of get you up to pace. The week of the 25th is the first actual lab you have where you're going to be using the glassware to do, in this case, steam distillation, so you're going to isolate eugenol from cloves. That is a long, long lab. Yeah, you're welcome. Now, because you're not meeting in person, and we'll talk about this next week when we do the virtual lab meetings, because we're not meeting in person, you're going to have to download the lab manual off the course website. It's under lab resources to see what's required of the labs. That said, you're also going to get a physical copy of the lab when you show up at the lab. But ideally, you would have met in person, which is why. Ideally, we would have met in person first, so you'd have the lab manuals to work with. You'll be required to keep a lab notebook. We'll talk about this more next week. Lab notebook, you need to do a pre-lab. For the lab, before you show up the lab, you need to do a post lab before the next experimental lab. There are a few labs where we don't do experiments. You're not required to bring a lab notebook to those, so I don't grade the lab notebooks. I'm going to have a lab syllabus in hand, and I'm going to write down your grade each week for how much you get for the pre-lab and post-lab. They are due at the subsequent lab, so if you miss it, you don't get to make it back up. That said, each pre-lab's worth about 5 points on your lab notebook. Every post-lab's worth about 5 points. So if you miss one or two, it doesn't really radically change your grade. If you're consistently not doing the pre-labs and post-labs, that's when you're going to notice your lab notebook grade goes down quite a bit. And I think your lab notebook's 20% of the lab grade. I say that, but I've got the syllabus right in front of me. Yeah, your lab notebook is actually 25% of the grade. So the lab notebook should be an easy 25 points to get in the lab. Typically, if you see people doing poorly in the lab notebook, it's because they just straight up didn't keep one. And the syllabus, and we'll talk about next week, the syllabus explicitly states what's expected for the pre-lab and the post-labs. There is also a rubric available on the course website. So if you go into lab resources and in that writing tutorial, I think it says rubrics and guidelines. You can download the actual grading rubric I'll be using for the course. So you'll see what each lab is worth in terms of pre-labs and post-labs, the expectation for the table of contents, the expectation for the notebook itself. So big thing with this course is that everything is going to be disclosed to you. Like there's no gotcha with any of this. I'm going to tell you when I can explicitly how you're going to be graded on these materials. The lab practical, you're going to have a syllabus that you're going to have a rubric that your lab practical is graded against, so you can see what everything's worth and how it's being assessed. Lab reports are the same way. There's a rubric on the course website. There are model lab reports, so you get a feel for what's expected in the course. Now, the big thing with the lab course is we're not supposed to be doing any physical copies. So while I will have copies of your syllabi of your grading rubric, you won't get it back. But you can look at it at any time. Like if you want to see what your grade is in the lab notebook, you can see it. I just can't physically give it to you. But there is transparency with the grading. So like with lab reports, I give feedback on the lab reports and tell you everywhere I took off a point. Lab practical will be the same way. You're free to look at the grading rubric. I just can't give it back to you because it's a physical copy. Yeah, what's your question about the discussion board? Come on, Elijah, what's your question about the discussion board? So the reaction you're looking at, and the reason why we have to use the half equivalent is to say that we're only going to get a mono substitution. We're only going to replace one hydrogen with chlorine. So with this one, it's refreshing a few things. The first one, the 2-methyl heptane, is just, do you remember how halogens substitute based on free radical halogenation? So there's only one carbon in that compound that reliably substitute, and it's with all of these, keep in mind you're going through a radical intermediate. So you're looking for the one that has the most stable radical. So for those of you in Orgo 2, this is the compounds that you're being given. So this one, and if you can it gives you a hint. If you look at them, there's only one where there's actually two stable places to substitute off that free radical. So if we remove one hydrogen and add a chlorine to each of these, what do we finish with? There's only one stable radical here. This one, did I draw that right? Oh, missing one more. You can tell from the naming, the 3-methyl-3-heptene, there's actually two positions here that are substituted. Here there's only one position, and here there's only one position that's reliably substituted. So you're going to have to figure out which one it is, and then just name it. Honestly, if you look at all these, it's just the name of the compound, but you just put the name of the chloro group in it. So for something like 2-methyl-heptane, there'll be something chloro 2-methyl-heptane. For the 6-methyl-3-heptene, there will be something chloro 6-methyl-3-heptene. For the 6-methyl-1-heptene, there'll be something chloro 6-methyl-1-heptene, and so forth. So if you look at something like 2-methyl-heptane, I'll give you that one. The most stable radical here is the tertiary. So since you were more likely to react with a tertiary carbon for halogenation, we'll end up with a 2-chloro 2-methyl-heptane product. Yes, this is for Orgo 2. Orgo 1, you don't even know how to draw these yet. Yeah, it's just a substitution. You're subtracting one hydrogen with a chlorine. Now, the big thing with these, particularly with these three, is you have radical stabilization. So it's going to change where the chlorine attaches based on which radical is stabilized. Now, with any radical reaction, you can definitely get the resonance forms. And that's why this one ends up getting two. If you look at it, there's actually two stabilized radicals. Here, there are technically two radicals, but one is definitely more stable than the other. And for here, yeah, there's lots of radicals, but there's definitely one that's much more stable than the others. And then the follow-up question, which of the four would best to convert 2-methyl 3-chloroheptane? Wow, that's named incorrectly. So for that one, what you would want to do is look for one which basically has that name, except it says heptene instead of heptane. So that's the easiest way to approach that one, is figure out which one of those has that as the stable product, and then talk about how you would convert the alkene to the alkane. But yes, conceptually for Orgo 2, your first discussion board, it's just review of a lot of stuff you covered in Orgo 1. So radical halogenation of an alkane, radical halogenation of an alkene, and then with the dienes, that's kind of new material. And then converting the alkyl alkene to an alkyl halide. Sorry, converting the haloalkene to the alkyl halide, that's kind of going back to Orgo 1 as well. Yeah, you're welcome. There's only one on here that should be new material. And for those of you taking Orgo 2, if you go under, I think it's lessons, there are Chemistry 251 review materials. Oh dear, I didn't upload it. Let me put it up there. So what I'm going to load to the Chemistry 251 review materials, when you see it, it's two packets. One is filled in, one is not. It's reactions that I cover in Organic 1. Fill out as many of those as you can, and then the one that's filled in has all the relevant information, but make sure that you can fill in that table by yourself. Yeah, the diene is the only new one. If you work it out, there's like 3 places that chlorine can substitute, but practically there's really just one. One is a highly unstable alkene. The other breaks up the conjugation. So while it can occur, it's just not likely to occur. So you don't need the review material for Orgo 1 because it's a summary of all the reactions that are covered in Organic 1. So I don't give you that review material because there's no point in giving it to you. It's something that you're going to be filling out along the way. For Orgo 1, I think there might be some review material in the course website. Yes, so there's a 151, 152 review. This is our Chem 1, Chem 2. There's a review on Lewis theory, review on thermodynamics, review of Lewis acids and bases, and a list of strong acids and strong bases. But we treat Organic 1 like you've never taken an organic chemistry course before, so we don't expect you to be able, the only thing we expect you to be able to do is draw a Lewis theory the way you were taught to do it. Then we're going to talk about how organic chemists don't really draw Lewis structures, they do shortcuts. So that's really more what you're going to be doing is shortcuts with Lewis theory. But for the Organic 2 students, there are roughly 40 reagents that you're going to learn how to work with. Not all schools teach the same reagents. So that's more to make sure that they have a firm grasp of all the reagents they were expected to know from Organic 1, so they go to Organic 2. So in terms of finding the review material, if you go under lessons, if you haven't taken the course entry quiz, you're not going to be able to see it. But after you've taken it, if you go to lessons, There will be a Chemistry 151 and 152 review materials. And I think they're just PowerPoints. There's not the strange thing is that okay, organic is a new way of looking at it. So organic is the first specialty course you take in chemistry, and it is a way of looking at the world. So the big thing with this course is just approach it with an open mind. Hey, you're welcome. No, I think it's all software that is self-contained in the McGraw Hill interface. It shouldn't require you to download anything. But if it is going to require you to download something, it's going to let you download it directly from their website anyway. All right, other questions? All right, so if there are any other questions, we'll go ahead and call good for today. There is a live stream tomorrow. Um, Live streams are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. As always, if you got questions, email me to advance. I'll email them to me in advance. I'll try to answer them up front. And next week, tomorrow, we technically have lab. It will be an informal Teams meeting. Next week is when we're genuinely going to start into labs. We're going to have you're going to just receive the invites later today when I'm able to actually like send them out. And yeah, we'll start out the semester.